Hello and welcome to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube page. My name is Kyle Boone. Adam Finklestein, fresh, smiling this morning. How are we doing today?
Feeling great.
Good.
How about you?
Doing well. Yeah, we're going to talk about some NBA draft stuff, and I am happy to talk some ball with you as always. And on this channel, on this episode, we're going to talk about the NBA draft, which we've done for a little over a month, talking about NBA mock drafts. We've done some breakdowns of Cooper Flagg, of the Rutgers duo. Today, we are going to talk about a fine 15. That is, we have named and written out, handed our top 15 prospects in the 2025 NBA draft class as things stand right now leading into March. And I'm excited to see your prospect rankings, Fink. You don't typically divulge such information. So we're going to just take this backwards countdown style. So we're going to go 15 all the way down to 1. And just because I've already shared my prospect rankings with you, I'm going to let you start. We're going to go 15 to 12 and then just tackle this in pods. Go ahead.
Let me first say the only reason why I put these in order is because we got the mandate. This was what we were doing on this show. I mean, it was just last week. I was like, Derek Queen or Danny Wolf. I was like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, as we do more deep dives. But all right. So we did both do 1 to 15 in order. We're going to start. I'll do my final 3. And I know at least one of these guys is higher on your board.
That's right.
So number 15 for me was Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's. And honestly, there were about a dozen prospects you could have gone with here. I just think he's a fascinating guy. When you talk about 6'9" with a reported 7'5" wingspan, obviously a very high level athlete. He's got a strong body in addition to that length. He's been a 40% plus 3-point shooter very consistently now. He's an explosive finisher. He looks like an NBA player physically. There's some defensive versatility there. So on the surface, he's going to check a lot of different boxes. And the thing I will say, too, is I think the role he is playing at St. Joe's will be somewhat similar to the role he could potentially play in the NBA. And what I mean by that is people will look at his St. Joe stats and say, hey, if he's that good, why isn't he more of an offensive focal point here? Well, it's because he's playing a role somewhat, supportive role, shall we say, that is going to ease the transition to an obviously supportive role in the NBA. And we're talking about, again, a 4, maybe even small ball 5 who can vertical space, emphatically space the floor with his shooting, and potentially defend multiple positions. So I threw him in at 15. A
little high for me, but continue. 14.
Yeah, it might be high for me too, honestly. I'm not, but I rather than doing deep dives on some of those international guys that I'm not quite as far along with yet.
Yeah,
I just wanted to talk about Fleming a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. All right, give me your 14 and 13.
All right, 14 is Nolan Traore. And talking about a big lead guard, 6'3", almost 6'4" without shoes on.
Yeah.
Got some interesting discrepancies in his length when you go back and look at the measurement history. Like one measurement, he's 6'6", the other one, he's 6'8". And I know 2 inches isn't like necessarily in the grand scheme of things seem like a big deal, but it makes a difference when you're talking about wingspan. Great speed. I mean, that is his primary thing, is his ability to get into the paint. He's got phenomenal burst. He's got really good vision along with that. So there's a lot of upside there. The shooting and by extension, how his game translates into a half court game, I think is why the stock has slipped a little bit. Remember, he kind of came out of the summer as someone that people were talking about as a potential top 5 pick, and he's not really there anymore. You have him higher, lower, about the same?
Higher, yes, but continue.
All right. This guy you definitely have higher. I've got Jace Richardson at 13. And Jace Richardson is the annual groupthink that is a draft Twitter is all coming together to celebrate Jace Richardson like no other. And listen, there's good reason for it. I mean, he's
a stud, dude. He's a stud.
I mean, yeah. Here's the thing. I mean, he's very good. And the versatility and the efficiency is what I'm all about, because he's shooting it well from 3. That's an area where he's shown terrific growth since his high school years. He's also making pull-ups. In fact, he's got really high mid-range usage. They run him off a ton of like little curls and get him to his pull-ups and his floaters. He's got a knack for playing pick and roll. And his finishing rate is sky high for a guy who's still not fully developed physically. Yeah. He's a plus on the defensive end of the floor. Now, I think the concerns are, and I don't know how high you have him, but I've seen like some people have him in the mid-lottery. And to me, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not saying I'm not closed, that's not a possibility. But I just want to keep seeing more. And I just wonder if it's like the echo chamber of like, there's every year there's somebody that draft Twitter or draft X or whatever we want to call it, like falls in love with. And Jace Richardson is undeniably that guy right now. Everybody loves him on social media. And it's almost like it's the race to say, I had Jace Richardson higher than you by everybody in that. So I've got him at 13, but I know you have him higher, as I think a lot of people do. So do you want to give me your
I'll give
Jace Richardson?
Yeah, I'll count down my 15 through 13, and then we'll just continue on in specific pods. We don't necessarily have to break down every player, but we can talk about, because some of these we're going to end up doubling up. But 15
a lot of bigs I've already talked about, so
we've got some of these already covered. JT Toppin is 15 for me. Danny Wolf 14. Con Knippel from Duke is 13. And we talked Danny Wolf, JT Toppin a little bit last week, ranking some of the bigs in this class. Two guys who I obviously have a little bit higher than you do on my personal board, for different reasons. And then Knippel, who I think you probably have quite a bit higher.
I'm very high on Con.
Yeah, and I think that's totally reasonable. But some of the guys I have to make space for in my top 10, including the aforementioned Jace Richardson.
So Nada, what we need to do is clip this pod right here and have it be a historic kind of marker to see who's better, Jace Richardson or Con Knippel. We'll go back, because I had Con at 6. Where did you have Jace?
Yeah, I have Jace at 8.
Okay,
which is right at the midway point of the lottery. So,
and conversely, we each had the other one at 13.
Yes.
JT Toppin, can you tell me, because you are and I know you talked about him last week, and again, people should go back and check that out, but tell me why you are, I would say, higher than anyone I know on JT Toppin, because I'm not telling you you're wrong. In fact, I love to hear like the outlier opinions, because it usually makes me think about something. So what is it about JT Toppin that you are particularly excited about?
Yeah, so this may be like a personal bias coming out a little bit, but I did see him at the NBA Draft Combine, and I think his game just works in basically any setting. Like, he was very, very good at the mid-major level last year, transferred up to Texas Tech, and has been outstanding for the Red Raiders and a Texas Tech team that is ranked inside the top 10. Toppin has been, 1A, 1B, depending on your outlook of some of the top guys on that roster. He's been very good, very consistent for Texas Tech as a two-way force. He's very efficient as a scorer, can do a lot of different things on defense. And similar to like maybe some guys we'll get into, including like Liam McNeely, like just kind of doesn't care about getting credit. He does a ton of dirty work. He's like just a constant energy presence on the floor. And those types of prospects I typically gravitate towards. I've seen it work at the mid-major level. I saw it work the NBA Draft Combine last season, and I've seen it work at a high level at Texas Tech this season. So, just like someone who I think has a very high floor, and his game, I think, projects very seamlessly to the NBA level.
All right. You are going to love my next 3. You know why you're going to love my next 3? Because I talked about them all last week, so I'm not going to talk about any of them now. So number 12 on my big board and is Colin Murray Boyles.
Okay.
Number 11 is Asa Newell.
Yep.
Number 10 is Derek Queen. And again, break all 3 of those guys we broke down last week when we did the best of the bigs. So tell me who you have 12 through 10, and if you have any major discrepancies with those big guys.
I have Asa Newell at number 12. Liam McNeely at number 11, Nolan Trior at number 10. So I think probably you're going to end up having McNeely a little bit higher. Probably maybe a little bit surprising that I have Newell at 12, just given that I ranked him as my top big in this class.
Did I sway you last week?
No. Newell was my top rated big. I think it's more like I don't see Malawach as like a top 5 prospect in this class, which I think is like becoming a more popular opinion. But I have a lot of those bigs in like the 10 through 20 range. Like I think that's a great sweet spot in the draft. If you're looking to draft like a developmental big, someone who can, make an immediate impact, or even like a Danny Wolf, who's like an older prospect, high level processor of the game, good passer, can play make, can do a lot of different things. So yeah, that's in part why like I have Newell at number 12. I think the positional value at the center position, you can get some good value in this class depending on kind of your flavor, as we talked a little bit about last week.
Did you list Malawach yet or not yet? Because now we've each done 10 through 15.
I have not, which means he's not in my top 15.
He's not in your top 15. I love it. I respect it. All right, so let's start breaking down our top 10. Just to refresh, I have Derek Queen at 10, Asa Noel at 11, Colin Murray Boyles at 12, Jace Richardson at 13, Nolan Traore at 14, Rasheer Fleming at 15. 9, I'm going Common Malawach.
Okay.
Talked about him last week. I think he is of the lob threat, shot blocking, rim running bigs. 7'2", 7'6" wingspan. He's the highest on my board. Although I'll say, I am not as high on him. Certainly, I'm higher on him than you are, as we've established. But I think relative to the rest of the industry, I think there's a lot of people who are higher than I am. So
there's a lot of steam right now around Malawach.
Who's like a bigger draft Twitter sensation, Malawach or Jace Richardson right now?
Shoot, I mean, like I've seen Malawach. I believe Jonathan Givoti at ESPN had him at number 5 in his prospect rankings. So yeah, there's a lot of steam around Malawach, which give it like I think just the different profiles between the two, like. Richardson's steam has, I think, been maybe a little bit more warranted. Like he's been inserted in the starting lineup. He's been awesome. Michigan State's been awesome. They're about to win the Big Ten. Malawach is a guy who like has consistently been like good in his role, but hasn't really grown like, a ton throughout this season. Like he's developed, but he's not taking on like, he's not the number 1 scoring prospect for Duke or anything like that.
So, when he's on the floor, he's usually their offensive option.
Yeah. So I think there's probably maybe a little bit more evidence to support like a Richardson rise than Malawach. But anyways, continue.
All right. So I had Malawach at 9. I have Liam McNeely at 8. Yep. And you had him at 13?
11, yes.
Okay. Case for Liam McNeely, pretty simply. And this is an unsophisticated argument. Go watch some UConn game tape when he was out, and then go watch some UConn game tape when he's in.
Correct.
And it's night and day. And this guy, and I've said it before, I've been saying it for like years, and I feel I'm just like keep repeating myself. If you only think Liam McNeely is a shooter, you are just not watching him play basketball. Yes. He's actually the best guy on their team in terms of putting pressure on the rim, not to mention an emotional leader. And I think he's made some strides defensively as well. So I've got Liam McNeely at 8. Now at 7, this is a riser for me. I have Trey Johnson at number 7. And I'm going to be curious where you have him. I will say this. What he is doing right now for Texas, and I know Texas as a team is trending in the wrong direction and may end up being on the outside looking in at the NCAA tournament, but it is not because of this guy. He has all the usage and then some that we expected. And he is handling it and doing it with a level of efficiency that I don't think anyone could have anticipated, most of all myself. And he's doing it from all 3 ranges. I think the passing has been better than expected. And I will end with this so I don't go too far with it. The comp that we hear time and time again on Trey Johnson, because he's a prolific scorer, but people wonder how it'll kind of drive winning, is we hear the Cam Thomas comp quite a bit. Yep. And I think there's validity there. but I heard something last week that gave me pause, and it was, how do we know he's not Tyler Harrow? And I was like, ooh, that's fair. And at least, gave me something to think about. So that's why I have Trey Johnson at 7. I think we've just got to account for how good he's been this year.
I love that. And I thought you may have him higher. So I'm surprised that he's in this spot for you. I actually have Trey Johnson at number 6. So an interesting prospect too. I think both of us have kind of come around on a little bit because of his profile earlier this season, a guy who's a lethal scorer. Texas is kind of middling in the SEC. I think it was maybe unfairly pinned on him that, hey, you can put up great numbers as a producer, as a scorer, as a shooter, but it hasn't necessarily contributed to winning. Now I think more evidence has come in to suggest like, hey, maybe Texas's system around him just is not conducive to winning in general, and he's thriving as a scorer and developed as a passer, kind of despite some conditions surrounding him. So yeah, an interesting prospect, I think, who was a little bit polarizing earlier this season, but certainly I think both of us have risen on.
And the other thing, he's been more efficient in college as the focal point of opposing defenses than he was in high school. So that's where I just come down to the growth he's shown.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
All right. Who do you have 9 through 7?
9 through 7. So Yegor Dimon at number 9.
Not
number
on my
8. Number 8, Jace Richardson. Number 7, Jeremiah Fears.
Not on my board.
Okay, so Fears and Demon both not in your top 15. Is Richardson's in your top 15 or no?
Yeah, Richardson was 13 for me.
That's right.
Yegor is just I think it's a pretty polarizing eval.
It is, yeah.
Tell me why you have him as high as you do.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of evidence to support him not being a lottery prospect, but I think the case around Demon is basically he's the best passer in this draft. I still buy that, and I think that's a legitimate star power tool that he has in his bag that no one else has. And he's 35 point something assist rate this season. He sees the floor at a high level. He's like 6'9", great positional size, versatility. I think his defense will end up being okay at the NBA level. Like, the shooting is obviously the shooting. That's the reason that we're both not ranking him as like a top 3 prospect in this class. But, I think that even if that improves just a little bit, he could end up validating, top 10 level value in this class where, there's some good playmakers, but in terms of like passers and true visionaries, guys who can be floor generals, he seems like most equipped to be like the small forward, do it all type playmaker in this class. So I think there could be value at number 9 for Demon.
And I'll say this, like, although neither one of those guys, before you talk about Fears, is in my top 15. Yeah. They would both be prospects that I would call lottery candidates on the draftables, where we say like, hey, what range are they in? And so they're both where you have them, I think, is reflective of where their stock is right now. I think both are considered to be very, very possible lottery picks. So now tell me about Fears. You have Fears. Did you say 8, 7?
Yeah. So I have Jace Richardson at number 8. 39.2% on threes, 92nd percentile dribble jumpers, 93rd percentile finishing at the rim, 89th percentile on jumpers. I mean, just like we already went through his case. He's very efficient. He's a really crafty scorer. Maybe not necessarily like a true playmaker, but his efficiency on both ends of the floor for a really good, like, top 5 Michigan State team has been awesome. Especially he's been good since he was inserted into the starting lineup around 6 games ago. And then Fears at number 7, 16 points per game, 4.1 assists per game. Both very good. Advanced ball handler, gets to his spots with ease. Would like to see him improve his finishing ability a little bit. Not a bouncy athlete, so I think there's a lot working against him here. And his 27.1% 3-point shooting range is it leaves something to be desired. I think there's a lot of flaws.
You gotta make the case for why you have him as high as you do, not the case for why I have him where I have him.
Yeah, no, I'm just acknowledging, like, there's some holes in his game, and you have to have some like real conviction that he can become a better shooter and a better finisher at the NBA level than he is right now. Like the case is basically he's a young freshman who has superstar flashes, just in the way that his ball handling looks on the college floor right now is insane. I can't think of a current prospect that comes to mind who is as polished as he is right now, and getting to his spots and getting downhill. He's really dynamic with the ball in his hands. Just you have to buy into some of the weaknesses, which are like undeniable weaknesses, becoming legitimate strengths. He is someone who is going to take some time, I think, to develop at the NBA level. This is a guy who, if you're drafting at number 7, you better have a lot of patience and a lot of confidence in your developmental program, because I don't think he's someone who, despite being a middle lottery guy in my prospect rankings, is going to be like a year 1 contributor, or at least not at a high level to winning at the NBA level.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. My top, are we doing 4 through 6, or do we just want to, because
Yeah,
a lot of these guys we've already talked in depth. We've dedicated whole episodes to. So my number 6 is Con.
Yep.
Con Kneppel is the 3-point shooting, as I don't want to say I told you so, but not you personally, but the 3-point shooting is now at 39.5%. There was those of us who'd seen him in high school knew that it would tick back up closer to 40. The assist to turnover ratio is 2-to-1. I'm not sure he's going to be, they list him at 6'7" or 6'8". I don't think he's going to be that. But it is nonetheless, I think the perimeter side, they list him at 6'7". Listen, if he measures 6'6", I think that's a win. I just love the size. I love the skill. I love the ability to initiate when needed or play off others when needed. I think of all, he and Liam are both like, you can plug them in offensively with almost anyone and they can have a fit. And I think with Con in particular, the ability to defend and be switchable on bigger guys and have more maybe on ball juice than I think others give him credit for. I just love the skill. I love the feel. Yeah, I'm in.
I'm surprised, Fink, that you don't have McNeely above Con. Like, I know you're a Con guy, but you are also a McNeely guy. So that one is one that I personally wrestled with. I ended up having McNeely at 11 and Con at number 13. Like, basically the case being McNeely seems like a little bit more versatile in that, he can be a wing defender who can shoot it, who can create. Con seems like a little bit more one-dimensional. Like, if you're playing him at the shooting guard spot, doesn't have like elite positional size, but he's a good shooter, and we believe he's a good defender. Duke's defense is like number 1 or number 2 in college basketball and efficiency ratings at KenPom right now. But yeah, like how do you go about like kind of grappling?
I think Con may be more of, it's interesting because Liam's been put in a position where he's been asked to initiate offense lately for UConn. Yeah. I would have said Con was more of a had more guard while Liam was more wing, but I think we're seeing listen, they're 2 of my favorites in the draft. And I think, to your point, if there are 2 players that I am higher on than others at this point, I think it's probably Con and Liam. And I am
for sure.
Like, I wrestled with where to put Trey, because he's playing so well.
Yep.
And I'm also not convinced that Con and Liam don't have I think there's going to be a dialogue about Kaspers too, and exactly where he fits in this order. Kaspers right now is number 5 on my board.
Yeah.
He has plateaued a little bit for Illinois. And I know they've had all sorts of challenges in terms of getting and staying healthy. But there is, for a skilled guard with really good feel, it just hasn't been quite as good in the last month as it was in December. And some of, I think what concerns me about Kaspers is some of the misses, whether it's like shot selection has really concerned me. Some of the passing errors are like egregious. And so I'm not really sure where I'm at on that one, to be honest. I think that the jury is very much still out and it's going to remain out. And I've got VJ at 4 because my top 3 has remained the same for a year now.
Yep. Correct. So we still have the same guys in the top 3. My 4 through 6 6, Trey Johnson.
Yep.
5, VJ Edgecombe. 4, Kaspers Jakuchonis. So I've not really moved on Jakuchonis, despite he has tailed off a little bit. But I still believe in the size, the positional versatility, the playmaking. He's hovering around 27% assist rate, 33% on threes. Illinois has had just a comedy of misfortunes basically the last 2 months, with illness, injuries. Brad Underwood, the Illinois coach, talked about basically I've been in coaching for decades, and I've never seen anything like what Illinois has experienced. So
right.
He could be one guy who ends up if Illinois makes a deep run in the NCAA tournament, he will be the reason why. And I could see certainly his draft stock jumping right back up to where it was. And, as such, I've really not wavered on my evaluation for him. So I still have him at number 4.
No, you are. I'm much more. I think there's a wider range of outcomes for him.
I think that's right. Right. I have him on the higher spectrum here. And I think your ranking probably more properly acknowledges the fact that he's not locked in to.
I think it's appropriate. Listen, I have him at 5. You have him at 4. So it seems like but I will say this: he is closer to 8 on my board than he is to 3, even though he's at 5. And the top 3 for me, and I think you. I have Harper at 2, so I have Flag at 1, Harper at 2, Bailey at 3.
Same.
It's this. Okay, so you've got Harper back at 2.
Yep.
As a reminder, we did deep dives on all 3. There's an episode exclusive to Cooper Flag at 1. We did an episode with both of the Rutgers freshmen who have gone back and forth in that 2 to 3 range. But again, all the way since they were high school seniors, these have been the 3 guys to me. And for more than a year now, these have been the 3 players in this class: Cooper Flag, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey. For me, those have been the top of my board for, I don't even know, probably 18 months now.
I will say, and not to toot your horn, Fink, but you go back to 247 Sports' recruiting rankings from last class. It is super hard to nail on evaluations for anything beyond projecting 6 months. Go back to my mock draft from right after the 2024 NBA draft, and it some of those guys are obviously still in the mix, but Trior, for example, I had as a top 4 prospect, and he's fallen out of the top 10. So the fact that you guys nailed this, I'll just go through the list: Cooper Flag 1, Ace Bailey 2, Dylan Harper 3, Common Malawach 4, VJ Edgecombe 5, Trey Johnson 6. There's a couple guys in here who probably aren't going to make it this year. 10, Liam McNeely. 12, Derek Queen. So you guys hit on a bunch of dudes who
Thanks, Boone.
It is very, very hard to hit on high school prospects, 10 times harder to hit on ranking high school prospects than it is NBA draft prospects. So kudos to you guys. You guys nailed it. It's cool to go back and look at that, because for me, at least, it's always a teaching tool of oh, exactly. What did I miss on that? So, man, it must be nice to look in the mirror sometimes, just know that you're perfect.
You're the man. I love doing this with you. Nicest man in America, Kyle Boone. Check him out, Kyle the Boone on X, for all the Jace Richardson compliments.
That's right. And I have a new mock draft coming this week. So go to cbssports.com. New mock draft coming, I believe, on Wednesday, possibly Thursday. And we've also got a lottery mock in the feed. Nada has actually sorted these into a playlist for all of our episodes, so you can go back and listen to all of those, the Cooper Flag deep dive, some of these other guys that we've talked about. The bigs were last week. So that's going to do it for us today. 1 through 15. Fink is playing the music, playing me off the stage. Thank you all for listening. You guys go listen and subscribe to the channel, CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.